This looks nothing more than a few concrete ruins in the middle of the countryside. But 80 years ago, British soldiers stood here. So what was this place actually used for? And what happened here? Welcome back to the war. So I've come across this old military site relatively close to home, and before coming here I knew very little about it, but once you start looking into it you realise this isn't just an old concrete structure. This was part of Britain's air defence network during the Second World War, and the first thing I wanted to understand was exactly what an anti-aircraft battery like this was supposed to do. This particular site was known as Station H17, and it was a heavy anti-aircraft or HAA gun site. The remains include 4 gun emplacements, a command post, a Nissan magazine and parts of the original service track, and just looking at these structures today it's difficult to imagine what this place would have looked like and sounded like when it was operational, because these weren't simply guns sitting here waiting for something to fly overhead. Heavy anti-aircraft batteries were designed to engage aircraft flying at relatively high altitude. The basic idea sounded simple: spot the aircraft, work out where it's going to be, calculate the correct firing solution, and then put a shell into the sky at the exact same time. But hitting a moving aircraft with a gun from the ground isn't exactly easy. You've got the speed of the aircraft, its altitude, direction, wind, and the time it takes the shell to reach it, so the battery needed much more than just a gun crew. The command post was effectively the brain of the battery. Historic records show that this site had positions for equipment including an identification telescope, a height finder, and something called a predictor. The predictor was a mechanical computer. Its job was to take information about the aircraft and calculate where the guns needed to aim in order to put the shell and aircraft in the same place at the same time. And there's something quite impressive about that. We're talking about a mechanical system doing calculations that we would now expect a computer to do almost instantly. But before any of that could happen, someone had to find the aircraft, and that's where radar comes into the story. If you've ever wondered about your grandparents' or great-grandparents' military careers, I am offering limited spaces on our military legacy programme. Comment legacy below and I'll send you the details. So why build an anti-aircraft battery out here? Because Sheffield was an incredibly important target during the Second World War. Sheffield wasn't just a city full of people, it was one of Britain's major industrial centres, with steelworks and factories producing materials desperately needed for the war effort. The Sheffield City Archive records that the major Sheffield Blitz attacks took place on the nights of the 12th and 13th and 15th and 16th of December 1940, with the city's industrial areas heavily targeted. More than 330 German aircraft are believed to have attacked on the first night, and almost 700 people were killed across these raids, and those raids demonstrated exactly how vulnerable the city could be. So an extensive network of anti-aircraft defences were established around Sheffield. Station H17 was one of those sites. It's around 16 kilometres from Sheffield, and its position formed part of the wider defence of the city. So when you stand here today, you're not just looking at 4 concrete gun positions, you're looking at one small part of a much bigger system designed to protect one of Britain's most important industrial cities. Here's something I found particularly interesting when researching this place. It wasn't just men operating the battery. Historic records show that between 1943 and 1944, Station H17 was staffed by mixed-sex batteries, including the 626 Heavy Anti-Aircraft Battery. Women from the Auxiliary Territorial Service, the ATS, were involved in radar, communications and other support roles, while the men continued to operate the guns. So imagine spending your days here. You're living and working at an isolated gun battery waiting for the alarm. You don't know if tonight is going to be quiet, or whether you're about to spend the night tracking aircraft across the sky. You might assume that because this was an anti-aircraft battery protecting Sheffield, these guns must have spent the war blasting German aircraft out of the sky, but the surviving records don't give us a story quite that simple. Records show that H17 was actually listed as unarmed in June 1942. That doesn't necessarily mean that the site was abandoned. Guns were moved between sites during the war, and historic England specifically warns that being recorded as unarmed doesn't mean the site wasn't still being used. And we know that the site was staffed during 1943 and 1944. So rather than pretending we know exactly how many aircraft were engaged here, I think the more interesting story is actually how this battery fitted into the constantly changing British air defence system. This is probably the strangest thing about coming to somewhere like this. Today, it's quiet. You hear birds. There's nobody here. The guns are gone. The soldiers are gone. And most people passing by probably have absolutely no idea what used to be here. But these concrete structures are still here. They were built for a war that ended more than 80 years ago, and they still tell us something about how seriously Britain had to prepare for the threat from the air. You don't always need a museum or a battlefield to find military history. Sometimes it's sitting quietly in a field, slowly disappearing back into the landscape. This was Station H17, one forgotten part of the defences protecting Sheffield during the Second World War, and now you've seen what's left of it. Before I end the video, I just want to give a quick shout out to my two children who helped me film this video today. Now go check out our World War II playlist. Hi soldiers, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments, and check out our merchant membership programs. And don't forget to comment legacy for your family's military history. And don't forget to check back in again soon. That's an order.